Hi, Cynthia Allen here. We're coming into day 2, really our first full day in the summit, and you've hopefully experienced Philly's Nikolakopoulos teachings this morning. I'm really still working. I'll be working on her name till the end. You'll find that my neuroplasticity is really weak around names. I hope you got to experience her teaching this morning, or if you are like our speakers in Australia this evening. And now we're going to be continuing on with our second talk in the nervous system health track. But I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people that are brand new here this morning to the platform, so I just want to take a moment to familiarize you with it. So there is a chat area. If you look around on your device, you should be able to find a way to engage in chat. Please do go over, start introducing yourself, maybe say where you're from, just to get yourself warmed up into how to use it. And Arlene Klein, our summit coordinator, will be over there. She'll be introducing herself. And if there's links to share as we go throughout, she'll be popping those in. If you have technical questions that you've been struggling with, you can ask her those in the Q&A. We're not actually using your chat right now in this talk, but we are going to use your conversation, your chat, to help us guide the panel discussion that will be held later today around this track of the nervous system health. So it can be a great place for us to jump off of, know what's interesting to people. So having said that, let me go ahead and introduce our speakers for today. Julie Peck, over there to the right of me. She's a physiotherapist and an internationally respected educational director of Feldenkrais training programs. She has a passion for learning environments and helping students discover their full potential. And over to my left is Lesley McLennan. Did I say it right? Oh,
yes.
McLennan? Yes. And she is a Feldenkrais practitioner from the arts background originally, performance arts, arts administration, philanthropy, and she has found that she can use themes of movement and accessibility to link all her stages of career. She was a mime, so she has that in common with Lavinia Plonka, the other co-host here. And together, Julie and Lesley have produced a webinar series called Organizing Principles of Movement, and they've also written this book, Moving from the Inside Out, a practical guide to moving with ease, brand new, hot off the press. So I highly encourage you to take a look at it. I think you will find it quite usable, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But thank you so much, ladies, for joining me.
Thanks, Cynthia. Thank you for inviting.
Yeah, it's good to have you. So I want to connect these principles to the nervous system health a little bit towards the end, but if we could just start out with why organizing principles was even an interest for you.
I'll start, Lesley.
I think that's a good idea.
Okay, so I suppose it's a long journey to get here. So it's been right through my ability, I suppose, as a learner is to really try and understand things and to put them in a framework or different frameworks where I can make sense of them. So one of the things, Cynthia, I really loved, the idea that you were talking about maps and how many different maps can we have to describe ourselves. So one of the things with the organising principles, as I kept going through the work of Feldenkrais and studying it in detail, was how do I bring out of his work? Because nothing we're saying in this book is new. But how did I begin to pull out what were the things that helped me to understand when I was assessing my movement or when I was looking at my client's movement, that gave me something really concrete to look at and assess on.
It's helpful.
So Lesley and I have known each other for many, many years, and we both have very different strengths. So Whereas I'm the person who's really immersed in sort of my clinical practice and the questions that arise out of my clinical practice and how do I sort of follow those. Lesley is so much better at sort of seeing the bigger picture, or how do we communicate things on a bigger level. That's not my skill, especially in the written word. So I suppose the beginning of it was Lesley sort of saying to me, Julie, you've got some really great ideas, or the way you're expressing these ideas that you're teaching with and using, I think would be really valuable for more people to hear. So that's how the webinars started. And I think it was Lesley's very sneaky way of getting me to do something, because every time she talked about writing a book, I do not see that as one of my strengths. I would completely go into so I really needed her encouragement and her facilitation. So Lesley, do you want to continue from there, that process started?
It was a delight to move Julie from I can't write a book to here we are. We have now a book written. And it was my experience of going back to a training after a huge gap. I trained back late 80s, early 90s. Just 1 year after Julie started her training, I started mine. But unlike Julie, I'm just much more of a flippity-gibbet. My brain goes in many different directions, and I was pursuing the arts, and I was pursuing Feldenkrais. Always stayed there, but not always as a central piece. So when I actually had the opportunity to go back and review a second training and heard Julie's amazing explanations that started to make a lot of sense to me of my first training, then that's when I was inspired to actually get going with Julie. And I was so awed by her explanations and her willingness to go along for a ride, to try out webinars neither of us had ever done, and to just to get in there, have a go, see where it ended, and or where it next takes us to, which is perhaps a better way of saying that.
Well, it's lovely, and I think, although I don't know either of you well, I think I see the influence of each of you in the book, and I'm sure it would be, well, it sounds like it wouldn't have happened, Julie, without Lesley.
It would definitely not have happened.
But I also think it would have been very different if it had happened without each other. So that's very, very helpful. Well, can you give us an example of a movement, an organizing principle of movement that, or maybe you can give us 7 because there's 7 in the book. So can you get us started with a principle? And maybe, Julie, would you want to start with one of the principles?
Well, the principles, first of all came from my immersion in the Feldenkrais method. So they're all, then, as I said, there's nothing new. We've just put them into organising principles, because what Lesley helped me to understand is that these principles are relevant to all movement, not just to how we perceive things in the Feldenkrais method, but all movement relies on these principles. So the first principle is that we'll be talking about in a little bit more detail later, is that balance is dynamic. And that really just comes from all movement requires a dynamic balance between stability and instability. So that's really going back just to how every child, every animal has to struggle with this ability of how do I not get too stable, how do I not be too unstable, and find a way to move myself through the world. Do you want to do the second one, Lesley?
Sure. So the second one is skeletal alignment liberates movement. So this is the idea that when we really, really get a sense of the 3-dimensional, stable, skeleton inside us, we can liberate those big active muscles, the big extensors up the back, all of these gorgeous big muscles that support our head and our shoulder girdles can be liberated for movement and action rather than actually stabilizing us and actually creating a lot of stiffness if they're always engaged in the stabilizing rather than the activity. So we go through a whole chapter on how do we get a little more organized around our alignment so that the muscles are used for action and the skeleton is used for stability.
Nice. Now, you almost begin every single chapter with a story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
and I really like that aspect of it. So you give such a clear, I guess, example in action of someone where this principle became particularly important. And Lesley, do you happen to remember what the story was that goes with that one? Am I putting you on the spot? Yeah.
Yes. I could flick through. But how about I just tell you about the image story that goes with Balance's dynamic, because I think we want to really go towards that one and keep
that'd be good.
focused. So the image that we used with Balance's dynamic is years ago, somebody shared a video off the internet with me of Lee Wei, who is the most remarkable acrobat, and he does slack wire. In fact, he after we'd all witnessed this on the internet, he actually became one of the performers in Cirque du Soleil and did OVO. But at the time, what we were witnessing was this. So the slack wire sort of goes from here down into here, and he's leaping and he's rolling across the slack wire. Then someone hands him this wiggly stick with a little handle on it, and he actually cantilevers off at an oblique angle off the wire and takes himself up into this amazing balance while he's still connected to the wire, obviously. Then he comes down off that, and the next thing they hand him is a unicycle. And he goes, oh yeah, it's a unicycle, blah, blah, blah. So he inverts himself on the unicycle, and he pedals with his hands across this. And it just becomes this most fluid form of instability and stability. So there is no moment where you could say he's in a fixed point. He is always unstable, and he is always superbly stable. So he absolutely fuses these two together. And though most of us will never get to that level, most of us won't even try to get to that level of amazing dynamic balance, all of us at some stage have either, I can remember riding on my dad's back on his shoulders, or we've ridden a bike, or we've gone across the brick wall, that teetered over the brick wall. We've all tried it. We've all done it. And what we do then in the chapter is try to open up what is this idea of instability, stability, the instability to keep us moving and the stability to keep us upright.
Beautiful example. So we have the first two principles of movement. I kind of cut you off track there. I'm sorry. Let's go on with the third one.
So the third one is progress to upright is cyclical. And that's just simply about how child development, or if you like normal motor development, that to come up to standing, to have a 360-degree view around us, and to really be inhabited in ourselves, and to be attending and moving to the environment around us, is a really sequential progression that's reinvented every time we have a new movement challenge. So there we just really go into the principles of sort of spinal movement, homologous, homolateral and contralateral, and how we keep moving within and changing within these different processes as the level of challenge keeps upping. We go back a little bit to consolidate something, and then we keep coming until we can find this upright posture in the world. Yeah.
So we've got balance is dynamic, skeletal alignment liberates movement, progress is cyclical.
Yeah.
And then number 4 is that the qualities, awareness of qualities enable self-directed learning. You can see, I'm just going to excuse myself for one moment and say that I flew back from Malawi yesterday. And so I am just slightly jet lagged, which is why you threw me asking for something that I hadn't prepared myself for this morning. So I've got a little cheat sheet beside me, and every now and then I'll flick over and help myself read it. But the qualities, the 4 qualities that we talk about, are helping us to create an internal reference system. So for attention and for uncovering our unconscious habits. And those qualities that we talk about in there, every person who's studied Feldenkrais will actually recognize them, because they're the absence of effort, the absence of resistance, the existence of reversibility, and the freedom of breathing. And we go through there and show how people can actually use these 4 qualities as an internal reference system rather than the external reference system that we've tended to use most of our lives.
Yes, carry on, Julie.
Okay, next one is the head guides and the pelvis drives. So that's really just saying that really efficient self-directed movement really requires that our head is free to orient us, to be able to act and react in the world. And what allows us to find that is this ability for our pelvis to be the power and to guide us to where we want to go. So again, fundamental to movement is that our head and pelvis always know each other, that they're through this long spine, that they're always integrally connected to each other and reliant on each other.
Yeah, and as you're going through these, I put you in this track, which is nervous system health, and I thought a lot about where you fit, but these are all just right on track. I mean, they are the keys to whether or not you have good health in your nervous system. We'll be able to pull those out more later, but I just hope people might be curious as you're talking about each of these, what it would have to do with nervous system health, because it's a biggie. So thanks, Lesley. You want to take us into 6?
Yeah, number 6 is that power is central and precision is peripheral. So in some ways, number 5, the head guides and the pelvis drives, is a special case of this number 6, which is more general, that in our proximal areas, our torso, that's where our power comes from, and that we want to keep our peripheral areas, our hands, our legs, and our head light so that they can move, and so that then here's where our dexterity comes from. Our real precision to use tools or to do anything else has to come from a very light, not just a very light extremities, and then we let the torso, the really central part of ourselves, power through right out to our periphery.
Beautiful. Let's hear that 7th one so you guys can go back and really tease out the first one that you want to work with.
So the 7th one is pressure organizers, and this is probably a little bit one of my little, I suppose, special ones in a way, to really understand how our whole system works under pressure, especially in our torso, and the importance of how we adapt to pressure or to load, whether that's internally what we do to ourselves or external load, and how this amazing cylinder that we have within us, within our torso, really can have fundamental influences on how our skeleton can work and how we can support ourselves. And then I think the chapter at the end of all these organising principles is if we come back to the healthy nervous system, is how learning is what brings all of these together. Because to me, a healthy nervous system is one that knows how to be curious. It knows how to be interested. It's interested in self-regulation and self-maintenance. And I think that's that's the thing that holds all of these together. It's the ability to pay attention, that we need time to do that, and it's the ability to make a lot of distinctions, which are all absolutely essential. They all come from our nervous system.
Yes, absolutely. And I think, if you go back to the first one, balance is dynamic. In my opinion, if there's only one question the nervous system is asking, it's asking, am I safe? Am I okay? And one of the largest, probably key question it has to answer after can I get the breath that I need, is, am I able to have dynamic balance? So it's huge. Without it, you can't possibly feel safe. And that's why some of us choose not to do things like walk a slack wire.
Absolutely.
I would not be one of them walking the slack wire because I know that I could not answer that question even close to being safe. So go ahead and tease apart balance is dynamic for us more. I know you're going to even teach us a lesson later, so people want to hear more about it.
So I think this whole idea of balance is dynamic is that we're always working between these two poles of stability and instability, and that we all have our habits around that. So that for some of us, we love to veer towards, our whole life is about finding stability. The issue with too much stability is that we can get stuck. And that can really stop us from moving or finding other ways of doing things. And then we've got instability at the other end, where we've got many of us who can't keep still, or it's very difficult for us to find a sense of groundedness or a sense of calmness, if you like, because we're always much more organised toward the instability end of it. So I think to really understand, we have to really talk about, in terms of dynamic balance, those basic precepts of, we've got a base of support that we move around, and that we've got a centre of gravity that moves around that base of support. So I thought one of the things is, because the thing that I've loved most about the Feldenkrais method is that Feldenkrais was so clear about making the abstract concrete. And I think one of the things that I think Lesley's done so beautifully in the book is this ability to keep pulling out examples and little things you can try so that you're just not reading it, but that you're really given the opportunity to stop and to really experience what we're talking about.
You call them TIY, is that right?
Yeah, that's correct, because they're not full on. All of the Feldies out there will recognise ATM, awareness through movement, but they're not full on awareness through movement lessons. They're try it yourself. So it's we break into the text and ask people to try it themselves. So that's why it's a TIY. It's a little bit of a take on a DIY.
Yeah, I love that. I love it. It's very creative.
So what we're going to do here is a little bit more of try it yourself, but a little bit bigger. So I think we'll do that, and then we can talk about some other things. So if everyone's just sitting at the moment, we'll come to sitting, and I'll just give everyone a moment to get there. So when we talk about base of support, we're talking about the bits of you or the parts of you that are making contact with the ground. So with sitting, could you find a way that you're sitting and you can feel your pelvis, the bottom or your bottom supported on a chair, and you can feel your feet also on the ground? If you can, could you also put your hands somewhere on your thighs? So what we've sort of got is, we could say, 6 points of support. So we've got your 2 hands resting on your legs, which is ground for your hands. We've got your 2 feet resting on the floor, and we've got your pelvis And again, I say 6 points because we've got the right side of your buttock and the left side of your buttock. So Feldenkrais starts off in awareness through movement with this really beautiful image where he gets you to imagine you're in standing, but we can do this in sitting, that you're a tree. So if you were a tree rooted to the ground, so could you imagine that through your feet and through your bottom, you've got all these sort of roots going down into the ground. So we're sort of increasing your base of support through your imagination in a way. And the more your base of support enlarges, the safer you tend to feel, which is what you were alluding to before, Cynthia. Okay, so could you imagine at the moment that there's a wind blowing from behind you? It could be a gentle breeze, whatever allows you to feel safe. And you could just feel that breeze blows you forward a little bit, and then the breeze blows you back a little bit. So there's this gentle breeze, and just get a feel. When you think of that breeze, does it feel it hits your shoulders or the back of your head or your middle back, or maybe down in your pelvis? Maybe it's in your arms, but you're getting a sense of this breeze and beginning to feel how you would respond, how you can adapt to that outside force around you. How freely do you allow your head to move? How freely do you allow your weight to shift? So the things that we're going to be sort of paying attention to here, one of the things that's fundamental to balance is the ability to redistribute our weight across the ground. So just really notice, does the weight shift across your hands on your legs? Does it shift across your feet on the floor? And could it shift across your pelvis on the chair? And then imagine that the wind is going to blow you a little bit right to left. So a breeze or a wind is going to come in. And again, notice, what's your image? Is it your head that blows? Is it your shoulders? And can this breeze or wind be only enough that it doesn't make you hold your breath? So within this feeling of allowing yourself to respond and adapt to this breeze, it's safe, your breathing can be easy. And again, the other way you can tell that it's safe is you allow your weight to shift. You don't stick yourself to the ground. So that every part of your base of support can begin to shift a little bit left and a little bit right. And you might be noticing that this is more familiar for you than the little bit of forward and back. And as you get more comfortable with this, allow the breeze to come in different ways. So maybe it blows a little bit from behind you to the right and blows you a little bit forward and to the left. Or it blows you from in front in the left and back to the right. And just begin to feel, as you get this image, could you imagine yourself as more of a tree, that you can imagine the branches of yourself being able to adapt and change their shape. So I really love this image. I use it a lot with my clients, this ability to feel that I can be buffeted a little bit, either by a gentle wind or a bigger breeze, And I have the ability, just like a tree, to have my roots into the ground and to adapt without losing my integrity, without losing my balance. And pause for a moment and just notice, does your sitting feel any different than when you started? Simply by allowing yourself to be perturbed in really gentle ways, has that woken something up in you? Because that's what the nervous system responds to. It responds to perturbation, but not just perturbation that we just do and don't attend to, but perturbations where we notice a difference. So that's really fundamental to what we're doing. So once you've got that, and that, what we're going to pay a little bit of attention to now, because what we need to be able to find dynamic balance, you know, there's sort of three things that I could easily categorize that are really important. So one of them is the ability to redistribute your weight, to continually be able to shift your weight around your base of support. The other one that we can always pay attention to is our breathing, our ability for our breathing to stay soft and adaptable. And the other one is that we can include more and more parts of ourselves in the image of our movement. So that when we often get challenged or more even threatened, often many of us get fixated. We stop the movement and we get stuck to the ground, and we don't keep allowing this adaptability. So the thing that allows a lot of this adaptability that babies are learning from really young, so the first thing they're doing is they're on the ground and they're rolling. They're finding all of these different parts of themselves that can give to the ground, that can redistribute across the ground to give them a feeling of safety. So if a baby can't shift its weight, it can't move. So the children that I see who have great movement problems, that's the problem. They're too stable in their system. They actually can't shift their weight. So our job is to help them to shift the weight. Or we can go the other way where people are too unstable and we're trying to give them stability. But the very fundamental start of movement is that we must learn to shift our weight. So if you imagine at the moment, Cynthia can do this because obviously it's challenging enough for her, that you were going to walk on a slack rope. Yeah? So you're suspended in the air. What do you do with your breathing? And what happens in your torso? So can you feel that for nearly all of us, our breathing will hold and we will fixate in our torso. We'll get smaller. Yeah? Usually our flexors will come on. We might go into co-contraction. But the other thing that happens is we lose this easy movability, this ability to shift our weight, which is fundamental to being able to move through space. So as you're sitting now, let's just check out some of these movements, and we do some of these in the book. So if as you're sitting, you've still got your 6 bits of support, 2 buttocks on the ground, your feet and your hands, could you very gently begin to look down to round yourself? So you're going to make a C curve. As your head looks down, your spine's going to curve backwards a little bit. Your pelvis will come forward a little bit. And then you just return up to your neutral, and then you C curve in the other way. So you're going to look up. Your spine is going to get longer and move forward a little bit. Your belly's going to get longer. And then you come back. So you're just changing that C curve in your spine. So do that a few times. And as you do it, can you be interested in how your weight is shifting? so that your breathing is easy, but you can feel that as you look up, you can feel the weight moves forward on your pelvis, it moves forward a little bit on your feet, on your hands. And as you roll back, there's this gentle movement of all your weight redistributing a little bit to roll back. So there's this constant shifting of weight. And then the next one we can do, the next C curve, is going side to side. So if you took your right ear toward your right shoulder, and you could feel your spine now curving, and you shift again your weight on your pelvis, on your feet, on your hands. So you're finding this way through changing these spinal curves, through changing the shape of your rib cage and your spine, to begin to feel how this is absolutely essential to allow you to shift your weight. And that a big part of this is allowing your head to move through space. And pause again. And again, just notice, has anything changed in your breathing? Anything changed in how you're sitting? Maybe your weight has redistributed a little bit, just simply from doing these movements. You might feel a little bit taller or smaller. And then the last one is to turn your head. So your head's now sort of looking around you to the right, feeling your weight shift in your pelvis, on your feet, on your hands. And then turning around you to the left, feeling your shoulders are turning, your hips are turning. So we're sort of opening up all of these places around us. But again, feeling all of us involved in that, but especially for many of us, this ability to shift our weight on the ground. And come back and pause again. So in a way, these are the fundamentals. What we've been doing is shifting our weight, just finding all of these different ways. And just for a moment, go back and think, if you were a tree and you were being blown around a little bit, would you feel you could let your head be a little freer now? Let your chest respond a little bit more. Let your feet and your hands keep shifting their weight. So then as we move on in our development, and one of the things we've tried to make clear in the book is all of these organising principles depend on each other. We've separated them out for to bring clarity to them, but you can't break one up from the other. So the next thing we have to learn is, we've learnt to move across the ground. Now we actually have to learn to lift something away from the ground, so that we can begin to move ourselves through space. So we're going to start with something really simple. So you've got your 6 points of support, and you're going to find a way to lift your right hand away from your knee or your thigh in a way that it feels really light and that you don't have to hold your breath. And there's many, many ways to do this. So could you feel that the way we get lightness, the only way something can feel light is if the weight is taken off it. So if that initial weight distribution hasn't happened, we can't feel light. And this is really fundamental to taking steps, to walking, to reaching. So just for a moment, let's go back and really feel that you're going to lift your arm, but you're not going to let your weight shift. So nothing is going to shift in your pelvis or your other hand or your feet, and just start to lift your right hand. And can you feel you must hold your breath or restrict it in some way, even if it isn't a full blown out hold of the breath, you must restrict it. And then just let your weight shift somewhere. Maybe if you look at your hand a little bit, does that enable you to lighten a hand? And how many different ways could you come forward and lift your hand, or go back to the right and lift your hand, or go to the left, finding maybe many non-habitual ways that you may not normally use to find a way to lighten your hand. And again, to notice this is all to do with your head being free, including more of yourself in your image, and allowing your weight to shift. Okay. So you can try that with your left hand if you like for a moment. So that's getting a really basic principle of movement, that if I want something to be light and free, I must shift my weight. So then we can come know what happens when we change our base of support. So can you feel if you widened your legs a lot more than you normally would? And now, so you've widened your base of support. You've actually made yourself more stable. Huh? What would you have to do now to lighten your right arm? And can you feel you must move more through space? You must do a bigger movement because you've got a bigger base of support. So you must shift your weight more to find this lightness in your hand. So Lesley, do you want to tell us the beautiful example you gave us of this in the book? Because I loved it.
So as Julie's talking about this on the webinar, suddenly in my head I go, oh my goodness, sumo wrestlers. These are people whose stability, well, that's their profession. They have to be stable. The whole idea of sumo is not to be pushed from that ring. So stabilize, stabilize, stabilize. And that one of their first exercises when they enter the ring is from a squat position to raise one leg. And their whole body has to tip to raise that leg. Absolutely over. And up comes the leg. And it's an amazing and a mighty movement. And then you think of, in the Western culture, the absolute opposite of that is our ballerina on point. So maybe on 2 points, but the smallest, tiniest little base of support, there she is, the arms are up, everything's very high, the whole center of gravity's high, and she has to keep moving. There is no time when that ballerina is not actually just tiny fractionally moving, because she is in such an unstable position. She has to keep moving. The sumo wrestler, well, you know, it feels or looks like it would probably take a typhoon to blow that bloke over. It's not going to take much of a wind to blow our ballerina off.
And that's the beautiful organisation that the sumo has, that from an incredibly big base of support, he understands that I have to move my weight because he still looks light. He still has that really beautiful quality of movement. So, you know, and that's what we're looking at all the time. So, you know, if we now said lift one leg, and because your hand's on your leg, how would you do that? And you're beginning to get this sense that if I need to lighten something, I must shift my weight. I must change the shape in my torso, whether that's very subtly or in a bigger way. But to do that, I can't be bracing. I can't be protecting myself. I have to keep finding this absolute ease, adaptability. in my system. And I think, you know, one of the things that Feldenkrais, that discovering through, you know, what he did, and because Feldenkrais is very into implicit learning, learning through your sensory motor system so much and having these experiences, I think that's why I had to pull these principles out for myself, to get a little bit more explicit, to really understand what I was sensing and moving in a more cognitive way that really, for me, expanded my sensory motor understanding of what I was doing and allowed me to adapt it to more possibilities. So I think that was one of the big things. Okay, so if you come back now, how would your tree be now? Could you feel that your tree maybe could lift an arm, or it could lift a leg but you're still rooted to the ground. You've still got this ability to adapt and to move and to feel safe, which I think is fundamental to what we do. So if I think of, you know, when I would use this, so some people are so stable. So Lesley, do you want to start with the little story of Estelle from the book?
Oh, yes. Years ago, when I was first training in Feldenkrais method, I worked in drama, and I met Estelle, who, and that's not her real name, obviously. Estelle had been gradually going blind for 20 years, and by the time I met her, she was in her late 60s, and to try and guide her was really painful, because she just clawed. She was so tightly held in, stabilizing the whole time, because everything had become a point of fear for her. So she actually came through the drama classes where she was improvising. She'd been interested in drama when she was a much younger woman and had full sight. And through improvising and actually giving up the need to be secure, she started to open up, let go. And the really intriguing thing was, it actually became a pleasure to interact with Estelle, because you could guide her. She could take your arm really lightly, and you could feel that the actual arm was light, her rib cage was free, and she was no longer so tight, and it made her less snappy. So I think we've tried to point out a lot of times through the book where the emotions as well as the sensations and our thinking are absolutely tied in to how we're physically moving in the world. And if we can allow that instability in with the stabilizing, then actually our emotions, our feelings are able to move more freely as well. And she became such a delightful member of the group through letting go of this need to hold on, which actually was keeping her unstable. It was keeping the environment more fearful for her.
And I think that's what's really fundamental. So, you know, you'll often see people like Estelle, you know, and they're really scared of falling over. So their options start to close down. They get tighter and tighter. So what we're doing through the Feldenkrais method is opening them up to more possibilities. So someone who's really stuck, to be safe, to make them too stable doesn't allow them enough possibilities. So often for someone like that, I'm going to get them in a position of more instability, you might say, where they're, just as we're doing here, they're sitting and they've got support, but there's movement available through their middle. Lying them down on the table makes them too rigid again, doesn't allow them enough space to move. So, you know, how do we find this place of someone feels safe enough to become unstable, to actually begin to feel that they can do this? And then, of course, there's always the other place where I've got people and maybe they've had a hip replacement and their whole thing is they're independent, and I'm going to get off my sticks as soon as possible, and I'm not going to use them because that's good, because then I'm independent. And how do I pull them back in a way to say, but there's so much you can learn about feeling safer and finding more efficient movement patterns if we just play with your sticks a little bit. Do you know what I mean? If you allow yourself to have that little bit bigger base of support to enable you to find more efficient ways of moving.
Well, even a healthy person can do a lot with a set of trekking poles if you know what.
Absolutely.
You know what to do. I mean, I use them to fine-tune aspects of my gait in a way that I can't get without those extra touch points that just let me kind of hone in a little bit more. So yeah, what a great example. And I love this little movement lesson that you taught, because I don't know how it will seem to people tuning in that aren't used to Feldenkrais, but while it seems very basic, and it is, it's highly complex. And many of us, really high-functioning people, are lifting their arms without really allowing good weight shift. So just that example alone, much less when you go to try to lift a leg off the ground, when you really pay attention to it, and just the quality of helping us tune in. It's lovely. I'm also thinking about a talk that's coming up, which is for people with head stroke and traumatic brain injury, and this little sequence that you've just led would just be phenomenal for people with really significant challenges as well. So I mean, I got something out of it, and I know that new people can get something out of it. Somebody with a lot of challenge can get something out of it. It's lovely.
And I think I was going to add one other thing, Cynthia. It's that idea that once you get people to feel they can be more that tree-like, if you like, and as I said, it's an image that a lot of my clients like, you can then say to them, think about something that you feel a bit anxious about. Do you know what I mean? Get them to notice, and then just go, okay, now find your tree. Find this ability to shift your weight where you can feel more adaptable, that the ground's there for you. And if you think about it there, would it be a little bit easier? Would it be that you could have another way of coming at this thing that's challenging you or making you?
Nice, very nice. Very good. I really like it. And I know one of the things that we saw in the last year's summit, when we asked people in surveys what they wanted more of, they wanted more about emotion. And even though I thought we had a lot about emotion in the last summit, and so I really appreciate, and we certainly have tried to have emotion in this summit, but I appreciate how you've really pulled in the emotional aspect, because you can't have emotion and movement and the healthy and a healthy the nervous system health. It all is just, it's a big bundle in there, and either the bundle is well organized or it's not. Is it a roll of yarn that can kind of beautifully come off when and used as needed, or is it just this big tangle? And for some of us, it's this big tangle, right? And so you're just helping us to untangle it and make it usable, allow it to be available for us. It's good. It's very good. So one of the things that we've been asking people is what would you like to grow in your own map, your own personal map, or the map of your work? I know this book was a big deal for you all, so maybe you just feel like, I can't even think about growth right now because I just did this big push on this to produce this book. But just in case you have something that's in your own life or in your field or your work that you are dreaming about, we're going to give you that chance to talk about that.
Well, I'll jump in there and say that what I am continually trying to grow, and it's because of my relationship with Julie, and then so listening to her a lot and then trying to write the book, is this idea of attending to my state when I get stuck. So I get stuck around paperwork. And I don't get stuck in the office around paperwork. I get stuck on the sofa outside around paperwork, and I don't want to come into the office. So learning more about, so in that moment when I feel stuck, begrudging, I do not want to shift myself into the office to do my paperwork. What am I doing with my movement? How am I being too stable, or have I lost the feeling of my skeleton and the ability to take action? So what I have really appreciated in this process and need to do more and more in myself is notice in those moments where it's not just about moving, it's about feeling how the whole movement, the whole tangle that you were talking about is connected, so that I can start to unravel that in my moments when I feel most challenged. And I feel most challenged about doing domestic things, about doing, as I said, my paperwork, about those things that I grudge, but I know have to be done. So that's where I'm working towards. Julie?
I think it's a little bit for me. How do I apply this more and more in my day-to-day life? Which I think is, fundamental to all of us, taking that time and that attention. In terms of growing, I think for me, it's really, I just love going more and more into the work of Feldenkrais. I really do. And there's something about mining it ever more and more to make meaning for me, to make personal meaning for me. And I suppose a little as he did, to synthesize it. So not just Feldenkrais, but bringing other areas into it. But really, for me, it's about how do I just keep enriching my understanding of this work and how we use it for ourselves and for our clients.
It's lovely. Do you find as a physical therapist that, can you say maybe a little bit more about how the Feldenkrais work enriches your practice as a physical therapist, or do you not practice as a physical therapist in your perception anymore? Or where are you at with that, Julie?
That's a good question, Cynthia. Cynthia, this has been an ongoing thing for me. For me, because I trained as a physiotherapist and I worked as a physiotherapist for many years, it's embedded in me. Do you know what I mean? It's part of my history. It's part of who I am. The Feldenkrais has enriched my physiotherapy practice beyond belief. So how I would use physiotherapy now is understanding more, I suppose, about pathology, physiology, but my practice is Feldenkrais, how I work with people, this ability to create a learning environment, to really understand the importance of my self-use. That, to me, is the biggest difference between me as a physiotherapist and me as a Feldenkrais practitioner. I had no idea how my self-use influenced when I put my hands on someone. And I had no idea of how I moved. It was all abstract. So what I love about Feldenkrais is it can enrich anything. But yes, I work as a Feldenkrais practitioner, but you can't take the physio out of me.
Oh, I'm sure that's absolutely true. And I mean, the base of knowledge from which you come from is just so rich that it has to be threaded through everything. Yeah. And I appreciate that we all come from different backgrounds, and our different backgrounds threads through everything. So, the Feldenkrais can, in certainly in my opinion, enrich any aspect of life, and can be the method of inquiry and experimentation and self-knowledge is, I just can't imagine any place it can't be useful. So
yeah.
I want to thank you both very much. I want to encourage people to check out the book, Moving from the Inside Out, and Amazon.
So right at the moment, it's available in Australia, self-published. But at the moment, we're having our conversations with a publisher in the States. So depending on where you are around the world, so probably if you'd like to get the book, which we'd obviously love to, it's actually all about disseminating this way of operating the world that is exciting to me. So we do like to disseminate it. Perhaps if you would like that you could go to the website, which is potentself, POTENTSELF.com, or you can get to it by using my name and LesleyMcLennan.com. That'll get you to the site, so that if you haven't been able to find that it's available near you, you can go to the site, register your interest, and we'll certainly let you know as soon as it's available.
Oh, fabulous. Okay, so Arlene will put those things in the comments or the chat for you. And also, if at any time during the summit you think, gosh, I'd like to know more about that, I kind of remember who that is, you go to FeldenkraisSummit.com, you click on the speaker names, it will take you over to their page where their talk is described, and at the bottom is their biographical information, and then their websites and ways to get in touch with them or about their particular books or workshops. So that's an easy way. You only have to remember one thing, FeldenkraisSummit.com. And as we wrap up here, we'll just remind you that we'll be coming back at noon for the third talk in this track. And then right after that will be a panel discussion. So every day, basically a new track starts in the evening at 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, New York City time. And then it continues until the panel discussion is done at 1:15. And in the panel discussion, we will actually be watching your chat and folding your comments and your questions into that discussion. So if you're wanting to be even more involved, that's the place to do it. And then every day we start out with these lessons by Arafeli Nicolak. Oh no, I'm going to mess it up. I think I get it, and then it's gone. Nicolakopoulou, and we end each day with Dorothy Hennig. So I hope that you will tune into watch those two. If all you can do in the summit is the morning and evening lessons, which are all less than 15 minutes, you will have gotten a lot. And if you are thinking, I cannot watch over 30 some presentations, really it's actually more like 56 if you count all the lessons in 10 days, well, you know, you're not alone. And it turns out that when we go to conferences, we have to select sessions and we can't go to all of them. And then if we want to have access to other sessions, or we want to have access to recordings of sessions later, there's usually a fee for that. And this is the same thing. So we have an all-access upgrade that you can purchase so that you can watch these things for the next year at your convenience. You can revisit the lessons. You can do this lesson with Julie and slow it down as much as you need to, or revisit it. It also comes with transcripts this year. That's new this year. Transcripts for all the main talks. We don't have transcripts for the panel discussions. And then there's bonus material that many of the speakers have offered that's worth way over $500 and includes lessons and papers that they're explaining different aspects of their work. So very valuable. So all of that you could actually still get $25 off if you purchase it while the summit is still happening. Again, we'll make sure that we have good information for that. You can always email us at support@futurelifenow.com, or if you go to FeldenkraisSummit.com, you'll see a little thought bubble come down in the lower right-hand corner, and that's a little messenger that you can open up, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. We might even be able to talk to you right then, but if we can't, we'll get back to you quickly. Okay, I think that might be it, ladies. I appreciate your efforts at joining together, working together, and producing a really quality set of webinars and workshops over the last few years, and now this lovely new book. And I know it's going to be of value to people.
Thanks, Cynthia.
Thanks, Cynthia.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lesley.
Yeah.
Thanks, Julie.
You all don't even live in the same area, right?
No, we live a whole country apart, 2 hours by 2 hours time zone apart.
Yeah, that's great. I appreciate that. 2 time zones apart. So you don't see each other that often then.
No.
Yeah. Well, thank you for joining us, and I appreciate it so much. And goodbye to everybody. We'll see you back at noon.
Bye.